Welcome to Long Live Alternative Party's podcast. Today, friends, we have another exciting guest on this podcast. He's from a city that's not too far away from ours. As those of you who have listened to this podcast know, this podcast is done in Austin, Texas, and this individual, his name is Eric, and he is campaigning in a great city like Austin, called San Antonio. So welcome to the podcast, Eric.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Eric, we are glad to have you, and if we could get started by you kindly giving us an introduction to yourself, a brief biographical sketch.
My name is Eric Litaker. I'm a lifelong Texan and San Antonian. I'm running for City Council to represent District 10 in San Antonio, which is the northeast side of our city. I've been a chef for nearly 15 years, and throughout my career, I've worked to develop and maintain several small businesses throughout the city, and I understand the immense struggles and burdens that they're facing right now, and I understand the fact that City Council and our city government has done nothing to help out our small businesses. So I threw my hat in the arena to try to fix this problem because our industry puts about $20 billion into our local economy every year, and there is nobody fighting for us.
Wow. That's impressive. $20 billion. So, Eric, this race is nonpartisan, right?
It is a nonpartisan race, but if you look at the candidates and research who they are, it's very easy to figure out what party they align with. And some of them are kind of outright with it.
Oh, okay. So what party do you align with, if we may ask?
I align with, am a member of, and endorsed by the Libertarian Party.
Perfect. That's what we'd love to hear. So how did you get involved in the Libertarian Party?
Well, growing up, I had some conservative values, and I got interested in the Republican Party, and I got really interested in Dr. Ron Paul and everything that he had to say and the lessons that he had to teach everyone when he was giving his speeches to Congress. I was a big advocate for him to become our presidential candidate in 2008 and in 2012. And I saw the Republican Party turn their back on him in 2012, and that's when I really started getting involved in alternative parties and the other platforms that were out there, because I knew that he had run as a Libertarian candidate for president, believe in it was either the 80s or the 90s, way before I could vote. So I started to follow the Libertarian Party and see what they were all about, and found that I aligned more with their values than with the Democrats or Republicans.
Okay, great. So the Libertarian Party is something that I imagine you have a great link to because of your small business, and a lot of small business people say they don't like all the local government regulations. Is that the case with you?
That has been the case. Our local government, it seems like it's a small thing, but the San Antonio government is a monster. I'd compare it to the likes of Chicago, San Francisco, or even New York City. We are the 7th largest city in the entire nation, and our city government definitely acts like it in the way that they try to regulate things and in their overreach and in the outrageous spending habits that they have. They have about a $2 billion budget every year, but somehow we found ourselves in a nearly $22.5 billion debt.
$22 billion?
$22 billion. And actually, when I started this race, when I decided to run for city council back in this past November, it was only at $18 billion. So it's growing exponentially.
Oh my. Okay, so this year is an off year. So how does that change your strategy of reaching voters, or is it something that you don't worry about?
It's not something that I worry about too much. I would say that a lot of voters kind of have a lot of voter fatigue from this past general election in November and the entire media cycle that led up to it. I think that may be one reason why so many voters have hesitated to get to the polls to vote early. I remember voting early this past November and having to wait in a line for about an hour. And that was, during an early voting session in the middle of the week. And right now I'm seeing people straggle in. The incumbent that I'm running against received 11,000 votes 2 years ago versus, I believe, no more than 1,000 votes for each of the other 6 candidates that were running against him. And at the moment, there's been less than 5,000 votes cast.
Oh my. Oh my, in a city the size of San Antonio, that sounds like a ripe opportunity.
Absolutely. In our area, in District 10, there's about 105,000 people of voter age, and to have less than 1,000 of them come out is mind-boggling for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, so what did you have to do to get on the ballot? What were the obstacles that they put ahead of you?
It's actually very, very easy to get on the ballot in San Antonio. You've just got to fill out some paperwork and go down to City Hall and file it with the city clerk. There's a $100 fee and a $10 notary fee, and then you're on the ballot.
Oh, that's not too bad, yeah. $10 a notary fee in this day of inflation, that's not too bad. Wow.
No, not too bad at all.
Good. We have guests on this podcast that tell tales of all these thousand signatures they have to get, sometimes for smaller races too. So I'm glad you didn't have to go through that. So
yeah, definitely.
So we talked about how that your race has a good opportunity and it's an off year. So how are you reaching the voters? What is your main strategy?
I've been doing a little bit of block walking, going door to door and meeting neighbors and talking to them, getting their opinions on things. Because there is no incumbent for our mayor this year, and there are 27 candidates for mayor, there have been candidate forums all over the city since January. I've gotten involved with a few of those because they invite city council candidates to come out as well so that we can speak to different and diverse groups. And it's been a great opportunity to meet people from all over the city, not even just in my district, but, if you're going to be a city councilman, you're obviously working for your district, but you're also working for the whole of San Antonio. So it's been great that there's been so many opportunities to speak publicly. I've also been very active on my social media accounts, and I'm blessed to be a part of the Libertarian Party who has gotten behind me 100% of the way. Not only sending me to, training sessions, but, giving me lots of boost on social media. I believe one video that I posted at the beginning of last week, the Libertarian Party, the LNC, reposted on their X account, and I think I'm at about 10,000 views now versus the 44 the few nights before they reposted that for me.
Oh my! So that gave your video a great boost.
Absolutely. I've also, posted several videos talking about the shortcomings of our government and the outrageous ways that they spend their money, and I've gotten a lot of traction from that as well.
Oh, good. You said there's 27 candidates for mayor?
27. Yeah, our mayor that's currently in office is ineligible to run again because of term limits. And thank God that we have term limits. So 27 people have, signed up to run to be our next mayor. And it's very overwhelming. I tried to meet with as many of them as I could. I think I only got to 18 or 19 of them that I got to speak to personally.
Oh, that's not too bad.
And it's definitely Definitely not enough, though. And the way
Oh,
that our mainstream media is here in San Antonio, at the beginning of the race, they picked basically who they wanted to be the front runners of this race. And they've given them incredible amounts of media attention as compared to the others.
okay. So overall, you think is it good for democracy to have that many people running, or like opponents of of lenient ballot access are going to say that this is bad because there's everybody running and it's chaos. So do you think it's good for democracy, or do you think it's a problem to have that many people running?
I think it's good.
Okay.
Having 27 candidates means that 27 people care about our city enough to want to get involved at the highest level. And with 27 candidates, it really forces you to research deeply into who you want to vote for.
Oh,
If you
sure.
only have 3 or 4, they're getting all the media attention for sure, but you're less focused on who they are as people, which is why I was so determined to meet with so many of them personally.
Okay. Okay. So because I found you, I as I recall, you don't have a Libertarian candidate for mayor. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. So is there any alternative parties, like a Green Party candidate, or are they all part of the two parties that are running?
Well, our mayoral race is nonpartisan as well, but based on the candidates that I've met with and all the others that I've researched, most of them that I could see are very hardcore Democrat and very hardcore Republican.
Okay. So overall in San Antonio, is it red or blue?
It's pretty much an even split right now. If
Oh,
we're
okay.
going based on the data from the November 5th general election, right now San Antonio is split about 55% Democrat to 45% Republican. In our
Oh,
history, we've been very, very deep blue, so it's interesting to see how much it has evened out in the past couple of years.
yeah, yeah. People say Texas is a very blue state, so it's interesting to see that.
Absolutely. And it was very interesting to see, especially, being in San Antonio, just like Austin and the other major cities in Texas, we've had an influx of people migrating to Texas from California and New York and other parts of the country, and a lot of them bring a more liberal mindset. So it was interesting to see San Antonio split almost down the middle this past year.
Yes. I have a question about a national issue that may affect the local area. As we all know, one of the major issues that this administration has front and made front and center is the immigration issue. So they are deporting immigrants, as we can see, and this affects local areas because they get to decide on their policy. The police departments get to decide how they're going, if they're going to assist ICE, or if they're not going to assist ICE. And in the past, cities have made sanctuary city status, and it sounds like now the administration wants to overrun that. So do you think your role is going, if you get elected as a city council person, do you think it's going to affect the issue of immigration, or do you think that's going to be separate from your role?
It should be separate from the role of city council in San Antonio. Governor Greg Abbott signed into the law, that it is illegal to be a sanctuary city in the state of Texas. But San Antonio has done a lot for the great amount of immigrants that have come over the border in the past few years. I understand most of them are coming here for a better life, but a lot of them did it in a way that the federal government sees as wrong. So the city
Okay.
of San Antonio used an incredible amount of taxpayer dollars to fund non-governmental agencies that housed and fed these migrants coming in. And I think it's very admirable. I believe that, we should not be a completely open country, but we should be open to a larger amount of immigration than is allowed legally. And I think that our legal immigration process needs to be completely overhauled, because it seems like it's a pay-to-play scheme instead of helping people out type of thing. But the city of San Antonio and city council has done a lot to help these migrants out. Unfortunately, one thing that I see may be happening in the future, and especially if we end up with another liberal-type mayor, is us being targeted by the federal government and the state government on another issue, the controversial issue of abortion. I don't think abortion should be illegal, but it is illegal in the state of Texas. And recently, the city council voted to create a $100,000 fund to send pregnant people outside of the state of Texas to receive abortions. But they were immediately sued by the Attorney General, Ken Paxton. And this also happened, I believe, last year and definitely last year, resulting in a legal fight that has cost the taxpayers nearly $500,000. So I see some of the things as admirable, and I see helping immigrants here in San Antonio as admirable, but I don't want to waste taxpayer dollars getting into legal fights.
Okay, so the same thing with the abortion thing, because so I trust that you don't think the government should prevent people from getting abortions. Is that correct?
I do not think that the government should get involved with preventing abortions. However, I also don't think it should be funded by taxpayer dollars.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, that would make sense. So you believe that the government has no role in regulating abortion, yet it also shouldn't fund abortion. So it shouldn't do either way.
Correct. The government should have no involvement in the health care of any American, is the way I see it.
Okay. So what other issues are occurring in San Antonio that you'd address in your race and if you win in your position?
So all throughout San Antonio, and I think you might see the same thing over in Austin, we are riddled with construction projects in seemingly every inch of this town.
Oh my.
It's hard to go anywhere in San Antonio without being diverted by orange cones and, driving through construction zones. Almost all of our major highways are under construction in some way or form. A lot of our major streets are under construction, and our downtown is a complete mess. And this has gotten in the way of not only people, traveling freely, and costing them their precious time, but a lot of these construction projects are outside of businesses. And the businesses are either greatly hurt or end up being completely destroyed because people can't get to them.
Ugh.
I work at a hotel in downtown San Antonio, and our two cross streets that are outside of the hotel have been under construction for a couple of years now. And part of that construction was to get us ready for the NCAA Men's Final Four tournament here in San Antonio that occurred, I guess, almost a month ago. And the project still isn't finished, and they're saying that it's going to take at least another year for them to finish this project. They blame COVID, they blame other city organizations and agencies for, getting in the way of things, and everyone's just pointing fingers and nothing is getting done. San Antonio is sick of the construction. And we have to find a way to streamline it, make things go faster. And if contractors are going over their projects by years, they should be blacklisted and not allowed to do any more construction projects in the city of San Antonio, because the longer the construction takes, obviously it's more of a headache, but it also costs more and more taxpayer dollars.
Oh, sure. Okay. Okay. So you want to streamline this and see how you can make it more efficient.
Absolutely. As well as we need to have our city council stop approving more crazy construction projects until some of the ones that are going on right now are finished. You know, our current city council, and I think it was on the behest of the mayor, who is the 11th vote of the council. He is outgoing because he has reached his term limit, so he decided to create a couple of legacy projects, one of them being Project Marvel, which would create a new stadium for the San Antonio Spurs, an overhaul of the Alamo Dome, a land bridge connecting the two, and space for some hotels and retail and restaurant space. But we haven't been given an official price tag for this project and aren't expected to until June or July. But the project's already been approved and local buildings are already being torn down to make way for this. Similarly, City Council approved the creation of a bike lane network that would go all over the city. First they said it would be 600 miles of bike lanes. Then it was 1,200 miles of bike lanes, and I believe we're at over 1,800 miles of bike lanes that they want to put up. But again, we don't have a price tag for this project, and with as bad as the streets are right now with all of the ongoing construction, I see the construction as never ending with these projects being approved.
Okay. Okay. So are you running this race by yourself, or do you earlier you mentioned that, at least digitally, that the Libertarian Party of Bexar County, right, is helping you, and also the National Party, right?
Yes, the Libertarian Party of Bexar County, the Libertarian Party of Texas, and the LNC have been a great asset to me. When I first decided to get into this race, I got into contact with LP Bear to get some insight from them, because I know they've had candidates in races for several years. So they took me under their wing, kind of showed me the process and how things work. They've sent me to a couple training sessions, and, you know, they've been a real asset. You know, they obviously, you know, post about me on social media, but I'm in constant contact with the chair of our local party and some of the other members, and they've been guiding me along the way.
Oh, good. Good. So this race, we're doing this interview at the end of April. When is the elections for this race?
Well, early voting ends today, and the election is this coming Saturday, May 3rd.
May 3rd, okay. A Saturday election.
Yeah, very interesting.
Yes, yeah. Yeah, they're having those here too. So, okay, so you think that's a good thing to have them on Saturday?
I think it could be a good thing, but like I mentioned earlier, we are in our yearly party of Fiesta in San Antonio, and I think having the election cycle during Fiesta and having the election day as one of the last days of Fiesta is really detrimental to this election process.
Oh, okay, yeah, that makes sense, sure. Yeah, unfortunately. Okay. So how can our listeners support your campaign?
Listeners can support my campaign by visiting my social media accounts. You can find me almost anywhere as Eric for Liberty. That's the number 4. Usually Eric for Liberty SATX, or on X, I'm Eric for Liberty TX. They can also find me at ericforlibertysatx.com. yesterday was the last day to accept donations. So the best way that listeners can support me right now is to get on social media and tell everyone that they know about me.
Okay, sounds good. Sounds good. All right, Eric, thank you for coming on the podcast today and talking about your campaign.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me.
We wish you all the best in your campaign and everything else you do in your personal and professional life.
Thank you so much.
Have a great day. Bye now.